Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in today. Welcome to It's Time for More Injury Funding, the podcast for all who want to learn about legal funding and its significance in personal injury, workers' compensation, immigration, medical malpractice, and many other types of law practice domains. I'm your host, Laura, founder and CEO of More Injury Funding, the legal funding counselors with passion for law, medicine, legal funding, and heart for all suffering individuals. In today's episode, we're honored to have Frank Rekas with us today, CPFA with Palm Wealth Partners based in Boca Raton, Florida. We will discuss the attorney's financial playbook, wealth, risk, and succession today. At the end of our episode, I have a fun pop-up question for Frank, so stay tuned till the very end. Frank, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you for having me. And honestly, I think I'm the one that's honored to be here. So thank you very much. Been looking forward to this.
Same here. So your career path is unique in the financial services space. Can you share
Yeah.
your story of how you began in this field and what drew you to financial planning and risk management?
So I come from a retail background. I was born and raised in Chicago, and my first real job was working and managing an Ace Hardware store. And I tried to leave twice to go to the corporate office, and the owner has first right of refusal. They wanted to hire me at the corporate office, but he wouldn't let me leave, which I guess that's probably a positive, but I was finished. I needed to get out and move on to something that was more um, it was better for me. I needed something more than what I was getting from working in retail. So I came home one day from work and I got a letter from an insurance company and I read it and I basically threw it in an open trash can. And my soon to be wife came over and saw the letter and said, what is that? And I said, well, it's a letter from an insurance company. They want to interview me. She goes, and why aren't you going to go? So because I don't know the first thing about insurance. And if it's a sales job, I don't want to do sales. She goes, well, I think you should go. If nothing else, you can practice your interview skills. So I went, I interviewed, and after I think it was 2 or 3 sessions, I was hired. About 4 months later, I started. And that was when I was in Chicago. About a year and a half later, we moved to South Florida and transferred within the same company. And that wasn't very smart because I didn't know anybody other than the realtor that helped us get the house and my brother-in-law. And then I, went through training again, kind of learned the area a little bit. And about 2 or 3 years later, I was given what we call an orphan. So an orphan is someone who has an account with a company, but their advisor left. And the orphan was a female family law attorney. And I had called her and she had some questions and potentially wanted to make some adjustments to her policy or buy something new. So I went out to see her. I tell the story the same way. She was a little rough around the edges. I was a little rough around the edges back. And we finally do a nice agreement and a really nice working relationship. She referred me to an attorney. That attorney referred me to an attorney. A couple of colleagues at the office found out that I was working with attorneys and I went on some meetings with them. And over time, it just evolved to working with law firm owners. It was very organic. It's not like I woke up one day and decided, okay, I'm going to start cold calling law firm owners because that would have been a terrible thing to do. And that's essentially how it happened. And my business has, developed from that. I was in management for a little bit. And it was a great experience, but it turned out that it wasn't for me. I really wanted to focus on working with my clients. I didn't want to be in management. It wasn't necessarily the same for sure as it was in retail. And I just kind of wanted some of my freedom back to do some of the other things that I hadn't been able to do.
Yeah, that's very, very unique story from how you got from the retail to working with your clients and specifically attorneys. That's very, very inspiring story, actually. So what specifically inspired you? So we're talking about the inspiration to focus specifically on working with attorneys, and how did that niche develop over time for you?
Okay, so when I was in management, I was preparing to leave and kind of put a plan together. And then when I officially made my announcement to my superiors that, I just want to be an advisor. I don't want to do management anymore. I took a look at my book of business, for lack of a better word, how we say that. And I was looking for commonalities. Where is everybody from? What are they doing? Where did they come from? And it turned out that more than 60% of my clients were law firm owners, attorneys, or people who worked in the legal space. So I said to myself, all right, if I'm going to kind of do a little bit of rebranding, maybe a little bit of reinventing myself and some marketing, then this is telling me this is where I need to go. I like attorneys. I like working with them. They need what we have. They ask very good and challenging questions, and that just makes me sharper and makes me better. And plus, I like all the TV shows. So I decided that that's the focus that I wanted to spend my time on. And I met a few people on LinkedIn, and they were specifically two people, and they've been very instrumental at the beginning of helping me get started, and made me feel that this was a good decision. And they've also been very helpful throughout our path together in introducing me to attorneys, helping me feel more confident about working with attorneys at the beginning, and then telling me that, this is a good space for me to be in.
I agree more. Every attorney, a small or large firm, does need your services for sure. So for listeners and viewers who are not familiar, can you describe the type of work you do with your clients without getting into specific recommendations?
Sure.
Across tax planning, risks management, investment management, and retirement planning for both individuals and businesses?
Yeah, so that's a good question. What I'm seeing today, and I'll get around to how we do our work, is a lot of the law firm owners that I work with want one of two things. They're concerned about if they're going to be okay at retirement with whatever retirement might look like. Are they going to have enough money? Are they putting away enough money? Is it going to get them to where they want to go? And are they doing the right things? So that essentially will involve us looking at financial planning, where we'll create a financial plan for them. Out of that financial plan, invariably are going to be recommendations that we have. And those recommendations are going to be, you don't have enough life insurance. You need disability insurance. You don't have long-term care insurance. We're going to make recommendations on that. Your retirement plans, maybe if you put more money away, you'll achieve your goal sooner, faster. Maybe you're not allocated properly. And also on the individual wealth management, we'll look at that too. And a lot of it is really based on, when we're talking about tax planning, we're looking at three buckets. There's your taxable bucket, there's your tax deferred bucket, and then there's your tax free bucket. And what we try to do is make sure that we're utilizing all three of those buckets based upon their situation. There's no cookie cutter, there's no boilerplate solution that we have. But when it does come to the tax planning, which is really, I guess I'd say, the foot in the door, because nobody's happy about the amount of taxes that they're paying, we always collaborate with their CPA. I'm not an accountant, so first and foremost, I'm not going to file a tax return. I'm familiar with them, we can read them, but we're always going to work with their CPA to make sure that the recommendations that we're making fit in their scenario, not only with whether it's retirement planning, it could be entity structure, some other things that they might need to take advantage that they're not aware of. And a lot of times the attorney is asking me, do you know someone that would be more proactive than the accountant or CPA that I'm using? I hear this probably 50% of the time, because a lot of them, they get their bill in April and they say, this is what you have to pay. That's not tax planning. That's just basically somebody filing a return.
Mm-hmm. So when you think, Frank, about attorneys as a client group, what are some common themes or financial stressors you notice that set them apart from other professionals?
Well, they're very busy, especially the ones in personal injury. And I get it. I understand it. And at first it kind of, years ago, it kind of used to, I'll say, upset me, for lack of a better term. They read everything. They analyzed everything. They had a ton of questions. And I finally said to myself, well, wait a minute. When you boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, went to school, you were taught to do research, you were taught to read, you were taught to analyze, and you were taught to ask questions. So once I finally got that in my head, I became a lot more comfortable not only in understanding them, but I think I also got better in how I explain what I do. I'm full disclosure. I want no surprises, especially with an attorney. I want to make sure that everybody knows everything up front so that they're comfortable in the work that we do. So I guess the first part is that they're very, very busy, but they're also very, very detailed, and that's fine. But because they're very busy, they don't want a 60-page financial plan. And quite honestly, I don't want to prepare one either because it's just way too much information. So one of the tools that we use, it's called Asset Map and Target Map. I don't want to say condenses, but it simplifies the financial planning process where we can focus on specific parts, specific modules, and really target an area that is something that they want to focus on. And as we progress through our relationship, we'll target the other areas as well. And that just makes it so much easier for them because there's a little bit of heavy lifting up front, but that's mostly on my end. After that, it becomes very, very smooth.
Thank you for explaining it so well. So since you're based in Florida, do you only work with attorneys in Florida or nationwide?
Now, we work nationwide, Arizona, California, New York, Chicago, various places, some other in the upper Northwest states, kind of all over the place. And I guess that's really a result of my LinkedIn marketing and then referrals that I'm getting from either other attorneys or other people in the legal space. And
Wonderful. Yes,
it's a nice diversion. Yeah.
I love that. That's good to know. How does your approach personally differ when you're working with solo practitioners versus large law firms or legal businesses?
Well, my sweet spot really is a smaller firm, and we'll work with solos. So, an individual of one, obviously, up to 15 to 20, maybe 25. That's really been my sweet spot. That doesn't mean that I won't work with a larger firm or with an owner of a larger firm. We certainly will. We're looking for, the opportunity, and it's become, I guess, kind of more and more obvious that it's the smaller to mid-sized firm owner that we're working with. And what's happening is, and what I see a lot is, it's a law firm owner who was maybe at big law. They kind of figured out that that's no longer for them. Now they want to go and open up their own practice and slowly hire more attorneys, hire staff. And those are really the ones that I think we work very, very well with. Decisions get made faster. Implementation of things can be faster. And it's just easier for us to work together in that aspect. Again, I'll work with a larger firm, and we do a lot of retirement planning. So 401k, pension and profit sharing plans. We do a lot of that, and that's a bulk of our business in working together. And sometimes they'll have a plan, but maybe it isn't set up the right way, and that's where we can come in and kind of make some adjustments for them and improve what they're currently doing. And we don't necessarily have to move the plan, but if we can become the advisor and give them advice on how to make it better, they like seeing that as well.
And if you ask me, Frank, as the owner of More Injury Funding, I'm with you. I prefer working with smaller law firms versus the large ones. It's just my preference as well. If a prospective attorney client asks what it is like to work with you, how would you describe the experience and what they might expect from your process and communication style?
So I have a business partner. She's a female. We typically work the cases together. The initial meeting or discovery call might just be me. It might be me and her. The advantage of having a female partner is that a lot of times we're dealing with male and female husband and wife scenarios, and I'm full aware that the wife might be more comfortable knowing that there's a female that's part of the team, right? I mean, my business partner can say things to another woman that just come across better than if a man says it. And I get that and I understand that. So we work with male, we work with female. We have our discovery meeting. We find out if we're able to help them. They find out if they like us enough. And when we reach that agreement, and we decide to move forward, then the process starts with gathering data, gathering information from the attorney, whether it's insurance, investments, retirement planning. We need to see what they have so that we can start our analysis and then determine what it is that they want to do. And it's a lot of questions at the front side. What are you looking to accomplish? I don't ask somebody when you're going to retire. I might say to someone, so Laura, you're 30 years old. What does life look like when you're 50? Are you still going to be practicing? What does it look like when you're 60? Because retirement means different things to different people. And I was talking with an attorney yesterday at a brunch that I was at, and it's really about finding purpose. So your purpose might still be to be involved in your firm or be consulting. Well, we want to know that because we want to know how is that going to affect your income in the future. So as we gather all these details, we begin to put together a plan. Probably we're going to have 2 to 3 meetings within that first month, short, 30, 45 minutes, unless they have a lot of questions, because I know you're busy. We want to move it along. We want to make it effective and efficient. Once we implement the plan itself, the financial plan, which is probably 90 to 120 days, then we're going to move either to every other or quarterly meetings. And my approach is I'm going to schedule the meeting. If you don't want it, you have to tell me, because the best way for a financial advisor to lose a client is no communication and never talk to somebody. So if you're too busy, that's fine. We'll try to reschedule. Hopefully that works. But I'm big on communication and making sure that we both know that the plan is headed in the right direction and that we can make adjustments as necessary where they're necessary.
I agree with more with you, Frank, is that most financial advisors do not reach out to their clients, unfortunately. So I'm happy that you are very different in that respect, and you are the one initiating the calls and meetings. That's wonderful. What are the most frequent fears or concerns attorneys bring to you that sometimes delay them from seeking financial planning or risk management support?
I think the biggest challenge that they have and that we have when we're working together is, are they going to be okay? Generally they're making good money, or they've started to make good money. And, there's paper rich, cash poor. You can have all this money coming in, but then at the end of the day, you look and you see, well, my bank account doesn't look as big as I thought it would be. My retirement plan doesn't look as big as I thought it would be. What am I doing? So a lot of it is really helping them take control of their cash flow and budgeting. And, budgeting isn't handcuffs. It's more like, let's have some guardrails, let's make sure we're allocating the money properly, that it's, you're not overdoing it in any specific area. Again, that's great in collaboration with a CPA, or sometimes we'll work with a fractional CFO who's really digging into the daily numbers of the law firm to make sure that the dollars are being used effectively. So it's the cash flow. It's also, again, almost everybody says, I want to know that I'm going to be okay. That's like the biggest question. And okay means a lot of different things to people. You may think you need $3 million at retirement. Somebody else might think that they need $10 million at retirement. And we have to try and create the map that allows them to get there. And we have to do it as early as possible, because playing catch up is very, very difficult. And sometimes that scares people because the numbers are bigger and they get a thought in their head that, oh my gosh, that's a lot of money that I have to be put away, or I didn't realize I was that far behind, or geez, it seems like I have to work a lot longer than I planned. So the earlier that we can start, the better. And starting small, starting comfortably, that's the first thing I want to do. I'm very sensitive to, personal cash flow as well as business cash flow. But if we never start and we talk in a year or 2 years, you're going to be further behind. So the sooner that we can begin our work together, the more comfortable you're going to be, and the easier it's going to be to keep moving forward, because the hill won't be so high to climb.
Mm-hmm. These are really good points. I appreciate it. In your experience, Frank, which specific risks are attorneys most vigilant about? Maybe as an example, professional liability, business continuity, estate planning, anything else? And how do you help them think about these risks in broad terms?
Well, I like to say that I have the uncomfortable conversations. I like to say that I tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. You bring up business succession planning, and being attorneys, you would think that most attorneys have a succession plan in place. It's not always the case. Number one. Number two, you may have the actual document, but is that document funded, meaning funded with the actual tool in the event something happens, such as a death, such as a disability, such as a retirement? What's going to happen if a partner passes away too soon? I had lunch with somebody about a month ago, and he's involved with a law firm where one of the owners passed away, and the litigation, because there was no plan, has been going on for 4 years. So succession planning is very important. You do have a business. You're not just a lawyer. You're not just you own a law firm, and that law firm has a business piece of it that you need to pay attention to. So succession planning is big. Estate planning, I think, most of the time they do have that completed. Maybe it needs to be reviewed, but we always, incorporate that as part of our planning scenario. I think, another thing that sticks out, if I can name three, is making sure that they've got all the basics covered with risk management. Most people don't like to talk about life insurance. It's because maybe they're not familiar with how it works. Maybe they had a bad experience, or they bought the wrong kind, or they don't think they need it. But the more money you make, the more wealth you're accumulating, gives you another opportunity to not only accumulate that wealth, but also pass it on, in the most effective and efficient way. I'll do a 3A, long-term care. It's one of the most overlooked pieces of planning that we see today, not just with law firm owners, it's really with anybody. And a long-term care event can significantly affect your assets. So we make sure that we have that discussion with them to make sure that we have a proper plan in place to make sure that those assets are protected in the event, you need long-term care.
And that's why attorneys have you. So that's wonderful. Can you talk about the type of team a successful attorney should consider assembling for financial planning and risk management, and why building that team is important?
Great. So obviously, financial advisor, financial planner, so someone like myself, you need to have your property casualty people to make sure that you've got your liability, your workers' compensation. If you own your building, you need to make sure that that building is protected as well. Obviously, the normal stuff, the cars, whatever. Umbrella insurance can be very important as well, which is something that's going to come from the property casualty advisor. Have a good CPA that's proactive. I don't like to use the word aggressive because that kind of has a different connotation, but make sure that they're proactive in planning with you. A fractional CFO is also good. That usually is someone that will pay a little bit more attention to the everyday detail of the books, do some bookkeeping, and kind of monitor the business side of the cash flow a little bit more than the CPA would. Estate planning attorney is always good to have. And even if you are one, I would probably recommend that somebody review the documents that you wrote just to get another set of eyes on it. So I'm sure if you're an estate planning attorney here, and you're listening, reach out to a friend and have him or her make sure you didn't miss something, just to have another set of eyes on it. I think those are probably the important ones. A banker, you never know when you're going to need a loan. You never know when you're going to have a situation where, you need to inject some funds. So having a banker is also helpful. And there are a lot of banks that have individuals who specialize with law firms. So that's, something else that's out there as well.
Or it could be a banker or legal funding company as well in that case.
Exactly.
Within that team, which roles do you typically collaborate with? Accountants, you mentioned, attorneys, maybe insurance specialists, succession planners, and how do you coordinate to create a cohesive strategy?
So when we're implementing anything, we like to be involved, right? I like to be part of the team, and it could be because I've suggested something. I've sat in a lot of meetings with a CPA. I've sat in a lot of meetings with an estate planning attorney. If they're working with me, I have a lot of the information that they need, which just makes everything go a lot smoother. And there's going to be occasions when a situation is going to arise where the CPA might make a recommendation, and we have a conversation about, is that the right recommendation, or is there a different idea that we can talk about? Property and casualty, that is not my expertise at all. I do know enough about to have the conversation, but it's also good for them to know what I've done for the client, especially if they're going to design a umbrella policy as well. So I like to say I'm your 911 and your 411. Call me when there's an emergency, but when you need information, I'm here for that as well.
A great way to describing your services. So Frank, for law firms and attorney-owned businesses, what are the key components you cover in your discussions about retirement planning and succession planning, focusing on concepts rather than specific recommendations?
So when it comes to succession planning, we want to make sure that the law firm owners have a succession plan in place. And it could be something as a sole or single employer operating agreement. Now, that's not a document that I'm going to draft. I'm going to bring in an attorney that's going to do that if that's not this particular attorney's specialty. But we're going to bring in someone to make sure that that's done. If there's partners involved, multiple owners, then we want to make sure that not only is the agreement in place, but is there funding for that agreement? And by funding, I mean, what happens if a partner passes away? What happens if a partner becomes disabled or sick and can't work? What happens if there's a divorce? What happens if somebody wants to retire? So there are all of these different nuances have to be part of the agreement. And a lot of them have the agreement, they just don't have the funding for it. When it comes to retirement planning, a lot of law firm owners, I don't want to say assume, but that's what I'm going to say, that 401k is all they need to do, and they'll do other investing and other money management on their own. They could be missing on some significant tax opportunities because there are other plans besides a 401k and profit sharing that you can do. One of them is called a defined benefit plan, where you can put away up to 6 figures pre-tax and significantly lower your tax bill. And they've been much more popular lately for a number of different reasons, because there aren't many pension plans around anymore, and you have a small firm, whether it's 5, 10, 15 people, you want to put more money away because you're doing well. Well, this is one opportunity for you to put some significant dollars away and also save significantly on your taxes, which I'm sure everybody would like to do if possible. So those are the areas that we discuss from a very high level view, and we get into the particulars based upon the firm and based upon the makeup of that firm, and then also based upon the cash flow and income of that firm. All those factors will help us determine what's the best route for them.
Mm-hmm. Very good to know. Beyond legal practice, what other areas do you emphasize for attorney clients, such as maybe disability insurance, life insurance, long-term care, or estate planning, or why those pieces matter in a lawyer's overall financial picture?
Well, I'm going to steal a phrase from an investment advisor to advisors who used to work in the investment world on Wall Street. His name is Nick Murray. And he basically said I was on a meeting that he did a few years ago, that if your financial plan isn't built on a rock solid foundation of life insurance, disability insurance, and long-term care insurance, then your financial plan is built on sand. Everything else is at risk. When I first came into the business, the very first thing that I bought was disability insurance, because I knew how important that was. If I'm not able to work, all of my expenses are at risk. Nobody wants to go into their savings account. Nobody wants to go into their retirement planning. If you're not working, you're not going to be able to get a loan. So you have to have the foundational pieces in place. And I come from a place where I'm not trying to push a particular product, especially when it comes to life insurance. I'm trying to solve the need. And once we determine what the need is, then we can determine what the right product is, as opposed to saying, here, buy this, and it's going to take care of everything. That's not always the case. So when it comes to risk management, it's a difficult conversation. I try to make it, fun, for lack of a better word, but it really is something that everybody needs to pay more attention to.
Mm-hmm. And you often have attorneys who are potential or current clients who like to involve their spouse or significant other in those conversations, or based on your experiences, is more, individual thing, discussion with you or your partner?
Yeah, we encourage the spouse being involved. And one of the phrases that I like to say is, Laura, I'd rather meet your husband or if it's a man, John, I'd rather meet your wife under good circumstances, not under difficult ones. But they also need to be involved in the process. They need to know what it is that you're doing. And invariably, we're going to be talking about something. Maybe it's life insurance, maybe it's disability insurance or retirement planning. We'll make a recommendation, and one spouse is kind of thinking about it, and the other one says, yeah, we need to do that. You need to act on that. That happens at least 50% of the time. So it's always good to have both involved because we need them involved. I want both parties to be involved in the process. There should be no unfamiliarity with me and unfamiliarity with the process, because the first call I make, it should not be under difficult circumstances.
In terms of risk management beyond insurance, what are some broad considerations you address with attorneys? Maybe tax planning, asset protection, liquidity strategies, and how do these fit into a long-term plan?
Well, a lot of it relates to risk tolerance when it comes to investing. Everybody has a different risk tolerance. Just because you're 35 years old doesn't mean you're an aggressive investor, right? I mean, the market's going to do what the market's going to do. When we create our portfolios, we build in a portfolio that is going to be able to be, how do I want to say, not reactive, but it's built with the volatility in the market in mind. So everybody has a different risk tolerance. Everybody has a different investment philosophy. We can build in ways to protect your money on the downside with certain products that we might use or certain investments that we might use. And as someone gets older, that might become a little more popular for them, so to speak, because you're approaching a certain age. You might be approaching an age where you need to start maybe accessing some of those funds. So because you're going to be drawing down, you also want to make sure that there's not a 20 or 30% correction in the market that's going to significantly affect your money. So managing from the downside, making sure that we update your risk tolerance, and we do that at our annual review to make sure that what we are working on still matches the way that we've invested, because things change, your mindset changes, could be in a bad spot in the market. So we're there to help guide you. We're not an alarmist, so I'm not calling you if the market dips 100 points, 500 points today, because we've built in the structures properly, but we are paying attention to our clients' accounts. Protecting your assets, life insurance is asset protected, especially if you're using a life insurance policy that has cash value in it that is protected from creditors. So I know attorneys like that. Even annuities are protected from creditors. So it really depends on each individual's scenario, what it is that they're trying to accomplish. And we try to match the solution to what it is that they're trying to overcome and what their goal ultimately is at the end.
Well, Frank, what impact does location, with you being based in Boca Raton, Florida, have on the services you provide to clients who are attorneys? And are there local considerations or opportunities you find particularly relevant?
So as far as the distance, meaning I've worked with someone in Arizona, in California, New York, Illinois, I don't think that plays a big part like it may have years ago. Obviously, you and I are meeting virtually. A lot of my meetings are virtual. If it's like someone that is local, then we can meet at my office, we can meet at their office. So I don't think the distance plays a role. Everything is pretty much in the cloud. Documents are all, for the most part, DocuSign. So because of that, it's very easy to work with people that are in different parts of the United States, even different parts of Florida. I mean, I can meet with someone that's in my city virtually, and we can get everything done that we need to have done because they're comfortable at home, and that's fine with me. So I'm okay getting in person. I remember years ago, I went to see a client that was in Denver, and I flew up that day and I flew back that night because we need to have wet signatures on everything. And there was a lot of documents that needed to be signed. And I didn't want to trust FedEx. And, if they made a mistake, I wanted to make sure that it got done right. So, and if I'm in a city where I have a client, I'll announce that, hey, Laura, I'm going to be in your area. If you have time to get together, I would love to see you in person. or if someone's down here, I'd love to see them in person too.
How long ago was that client of yours in Denver? Do you remember how many years ago? I'm just curious.
Yeah, it was around 2003, I think it was.
Okay, so
And
now we.
funny,
Uh-huh.
no, I was just going to add, funny thing is I was late to the airport because I got pulled over for a speeding ticket, and I was running to the gate trying to get there. I was like the last person on. So anyway,
Wow. So 2003. So 22 years ago. Interesting how much
yeah,
times have changed. I love it.
yeah.
Looking ahead, Frank, what trends do you see shaping the needs of attorneys and other business owners in the coming years, talking about the near future? And how
Mhm.
is Palm Wealth Partner, the company you work with, positioning itself to support them? And that's, of course, with the progression, super fast progression of AI and all other technologies.
So I would think, first step is everybody is concerned about taxes and tax planning. I mean, that just is number one, especially with the big, beautiful bill that came out. There's still some opportunities that, people need to take advantage of. There's still a little bit of time to do something for 2025 if, we act fast. So it's the tax planning. I think it's making time to do and understand your financial situation. I think that's a big, big thing out there. And I get it. I know you're busy. I know you've got cases to work. You've got trial preparation. You're running a firm. And now all of a sudden, the last couple of months or the next couple of months of the year, September, October, there's all these conferences that are going on for lawyers, and everybody's traveling to one or two or three. So I know that there's a lot going on, but you have to set aside some time to pay attention to your finances. Believe it or not, I've got meetings scheduled in September, October, November, and December already with clients because that was like the only way for us to make sure that we get together. So again, pay attention to the time, pay attention to your tax planning, and don't let it go till next year, because you could be missing out on some big opportunities, not only to save money for your future, but to save money from paying taxes.
Everybody listen to Frank. He knows what he's talking about. Frank, thank you so much again for sharing your insights today. If somebody is looking for the CPFA, and you'll have to decipher that for me, in Boca Raton in Florida or anywhere in the United States, how can they locate you?
So CPFA is Certified Plan Fiduciary Advisor. So that means that I am a specialist in qualified retirement plans like 401k, pension, profit sharing, defined benefit plans. It can be a confusing designation because sometimes see it and they don't see all of it, and they think I'm either a CFP or a CPA. I'm neither. My business partner is a CPA or a CFP, but neither of us are, CPAs. How can you find me? I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn every day. You can reach me there. You can message me there. My email, frank@palmwealthpartners.com. And I'm going to give out my phone number, 954-253-5508. I always welcome a call, always welcome a chat.
So great. Frank, thank you so much again for finding time to talk with me about you and your company's focus on attorneys and business owners, covering tax planning, risk management, investments, retirement, and emphasis on cohesive team, retirement succession concepts, and your local Boca Raton context, plus key trends that are happening right now and the future trends in the next couple of years. But before we conclude today's episode, as promised, I have my pop-up question ready. You ready?
Okay, let's go.
All right. Okay. How do you define success? And has that definition evolved over time for you?
Wow. I think success means different things to different people. Doesn't mean the amount of money that you have, doesn't mean the amount of things that you have, right? Money is a tool to provide freedom. Obviously, if you have more money, you have more options and you can have more freedom. So I think if you can find in your life to be able to live it the way that you want to live it based on your terms, where you're setting the rules, you're setting your destiny, and you're designing it the way that you want it, I think you found success.
I love that. That was again Frank Rekas with us today, CPFA with Palm Wealth Partners based in Boca Raton, Florida. I want to thank you all for watching and listening to our episode today. For more tips and tricks on legal funding and personal injury law related topics, follow me, like, and subscribe at More Injury Funding. And it's time for More Injury Funding podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, and all other podcast platforms worldwide. Also on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Pinterest, YouTube, Google Business Profile, and my website at moreinjuryfunding.com. I cannot wait to see you, my dear listeners and viewers, at my next upcoming episode. Tune in for our next guest. Until then, be well. Thank you.